Welcome back, gamers. Justin here with you again today, and we are doing sprint planning number 4. Good times. Today we're going to talk about the database, the AI, the gunplay, Steam, sound, and object pooling. So 6 different objects that are getting packed into this upcoming sprint. And as you can already see, I'm trying to make this a little bit more interactive, so today's format's going to be a little bit different than normal. Hope you like it with the gameplay running in the background, and then we'll kind of talk about the individual objects over the top of that, just to try and spice things up a little bit, up the production quality, etc. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so right into it with the database. So this sprint, I need to create the database. So the database itself is created. So I'm using, for those of you that aren't aware, I'm using Mongo underneath the hood as kind of the source of truth. But I have yet to set up anything other than just the infrastructure for it. So it's up, it's running, I can connect to it, I can query against it, but there are no kind of schemas, no collections, no nothing, just it's empty, and that needs to change. So along with that, we'll set up kind of the schema that's going to be used for that, although it's schemaless, but those of you that have worked with that understand what I'm talking about. We're also going to set up the models, the security, and some of the roles and such to make sure that it stays safe, but is still accessible to the game itself. All right, so moving on. The next is the AI. So there are still quite a few things that need to be accomplished with the artificial intelligence. So the beginnings of that is to just finalize each of them. So finalize the Scrounger, Hunters, Collectors, UNF, and Factions. Get all of the code bases written, get all of that stuff implemented, and get them behaving in the close to the final way that I want them to behave. After that, I need to import and set up the temporary character models. So, and I stress and emphasize the word temporary there. So that is by far the most expensive part of this project. Each of the character models for the company that I like, there are less expensive solutions. Let's start with that. I don't like them though, and that's the goal of this project was never to be a AAA release, but I do want to have it in the A category, so either A or AA quality release. And one of the biggest things that people notice with A and AA and even AAA titles is the quality of the characters, their models, their animations, those types of things. So early on, I made the decision to basically blow the project's budget on those elements. The rest of it's pretty easy, right? It's like buildings are pretty straightforward. Things like streets and stuff, you can do clever things to kind of fake that stuff without having just full-on crazy models. There are other tricks and tips and stuff like that I feel like I can use and implement and stuff to get away with a lot of the other things. But character models and gun models were 2 of the big ones that, to me, just had to be there for this to be a good quality game and meet the standards that I set for it. So with that said, each of the character models are going to cost about $5,000 each. I have found a studio that I absolutely love their work. They do an excellent job of rigging, of modeling, of texturing, of detailing, and then they've been great to work with thus far. But like I said, that's $5,000 a piece, which is a minimum of 5 different models. So we're looking at $25,000 just for the character models. And obviously that's, I don't necessarily have 25 grand in my pocket to throw away to that right now. So that's why I emphasize the temporary. So we'll use like Mixamo models or something like that to get a model in place, so that the animations, the artwork, that kind of stuff can all be put in place, and I can work that through the AI and and how they behave, and actually start creating some of those animations and such, but without having to have that huge expense up front. That expense is going to come at some point, at some point soon. But it's one of those things that I can kind of kick down the road a little bit by putting temporary models in there for now that are good enough to kind of get us in a point where we can start to develop a little bit more on it. So that's the plan with that. So I need to be able to import those. I need to be able to work with them, hook them up to the AI, be able to set up their animations and that kind of stuff. And in order to do that, I need to have a model of some sort. So we'll create those, or not create, but we'll import those Mixamo models for now. pending the actual creation of our character models later on down the road. So moving right along, the next piece is Steam, and this is a pretty straightforward one. I've already incorporated Steam. We've set up the Steam store page, but I need to be able to capture the login process and a few of the other things to be able to interact with Steam during runtime. So that means, so the player can actually log in. We can use the Steam account to store and modify. And, as you loot stuff, we'll be able to save it to your profile without you having to take additional steps to create that profile. So it'll all be wrapped around that. It'll also unlock the ability for us to do things like Steam achievements, maybe some workshop elements later on, that type of stuff. So, we'll work that in now and get us set up long term with Steam. So to keep the pace moving here, we'll move on to sound, and there are two major things here. So I mentioned in the previous video that I did on Friday, the developer blog, that sound was terrible right now, and that is absolutely true. I started incorporating the mixer and stuff like that, but it wasn't really a part of the sprint. It was more of just kind of a distraction. But it is in such a terrible state right now that I have to fix it. So I'm going to focus on two major areas. One is the footstep sounds. And two are the bullet sounds, so the firing sounds. So when you actually fire right now, it's just kind of a thunk, and that's awful. There's no echo, there's no reverb to it, nothing like that. So it's time to fix those elements and bring them up to spec so that I don't need to worry about them long term. Along with that too, I'm going to kind of re-architect the design underneath the hood here. So initially there was just one audio source on a character, and that was the footsteps. And I just kind of reused that for everything. And in code, I was setting the volume and changing the volumes and changing like the roll off period and stuff like that. And that is a nightmare to handle in code. So instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of shift that around a little bit, and I'm going to set up a game object that has multiple audio sources to it, all of those of which that are kind of pre-configured. And that way, all I have to do is just play from code as compared to trying to maintain state on one single audio source. Instead I can just say, okay, I need a crouching footstep, play that. I need a sprinting footstep on dirt, play that. And then I don't have to maintain any of that anymore. It's more just a quick if check to say, what should I be playing right now? And then find that audio source and play it from a cached audio source even. So it should help things quite a bit in the long run. It'll definitely make the sound a lot better, and it gives me a lot more flexibility over how the sounds behave, how far they roll off, just how they sound in general, really, especially when it comes to the bullets. So the weapons right now also have their own single audio source. I'm definitely going to change that up and create multiple in there. So some for like aiming down sights where it's a very quiet thing and it doesn't roll off or rolls off very quickly. Others with bullets where I can add echo and reverb and stuff like that to give it that more, true realistic bullet sound. And also the roll-off periods. And then it can be controlled by weapon. So maybe a shotgun rolls off a little bit slower than, say, a suppressed MP5 or something. So just a ton of control and a ton of flexibility there with the new scheme that I have in mind. But this sprint is the sprint to get that set up so that I don't have to worry about it anymore. And lastly for this sprint is something that we call object pooling. And what object pooling allows us to do is to not instantiate a new object. So let me explain this a little bit for those of you that aren't aware. Whenever you create an object in a game, so let's take a bullet for example. So you click the fire button, a bullet is instantiated and shot across the map and then check to see if it hits anything. Instantiating an object is a very costly thing to do, especially when it comes to a network, because you have to instantiate it, then you have to instantiate it on the network, send it out to all of the agents that are connected to the game, synchronize those, and then be able to track that across, in as quick amount of time as possible. So what we do instead of instantiating a new object every single time, because you could literally have thousands of bullets being instantiated at the same time, especially if you get, say 64 players at a time, you're all firing up to 900 rounds per minute. That's a whole lot of bullets that could get instantiated. So instead what you do is you instantiate as many objects as you need up front. So as soon as the game loads or the server builds, in our case, we're going to instantiate, say, 10,000 bullets. And then we're just going to hide those bullets, like shove them off into a corner somewhere on the map and hide them, make them invisible to the players. They don't do anything. They just sit there. They're out of reach of everybody. But then as you click fire, we basically grab the next one available in that pool. and it's already been instantiated. So all we have to do is just kind of update its position, and it's all network connected and ready to go already. So, basically it just gives you this huge pool of objects to pull from. And that way you're not doing this kind of on the fly object creation and instantiation. And it definitely saves when it comes to network times. It saves just overall CPU and performance. Just overall, it's by far the best option to go. So there are going to be two things that we use pooling on, at least for now. There will probably be more in the future. But the first two are our AI objects and then our bullets. So basically we'll just create a huge pool of those for, however many we think we'll need for a server. We'll make it to where we can adjust that number on the fly. But, ultimately we'll just kind of pre-create all of these objects to where they're out there, they're ready to go. Every single player has a copy of them. They're all being synced. And then all we have to do is just say, okay, you do this, you do that, and enable them across the platform. Instead of creating a new object, sending the details out to every agent. Instead we can just say, okay, this already exists on every agent, go use it. There are some kind of special things that we have to take into consideration with that, though, especially when it comes to like cheaters. There are some issues that can be exploited there if not done properly. So we definitely need to take our time, make sure we do it properly. But, ultimately, I think we've got a pretty good grasp on what needs to happen there to try and prevent as many cheaters as possible from exploiting that functionality. So, but it's a pretty common practice. It's the fixes for this stuff is all pretty well documented. People have pretty much well covered it at this point. So, it's really nothing new on our parts. All we really have to do is just kind of learn from what others have done and implement it properly. So ultimately, though, that's what we're planning on doing this sprint. I hope you've enjoyed the new kind of format here. Hopefully it's a little bit more engaging for you. If you did enjoy it, please, by all means, go give it, give this video a big thumbs up, share it out to your friends. Please share it on your social networks. Join us on Discord, do all of the other social things, slap a like, subscribe, go support Fittest by either becoming a patron or maybe just buying some merch, doing a one-time donation, something like that. But, whatever you do, I hope you have a great week. I will see you on Friday for a developer log where I can hopefully showcase some of this stuff off to you and show you the progress that we've made in the first week of the sprint. So, like I said, have a great week. I will see you again on Friday.